is no different between men and women, and then they get you on the make and model and color of your car. And for some reason, the kind of flashy cars that young men drive seem to attract higher premiums. I don't know why that is. But these are not matters that belong under the purview of the state. So that's my short answer. The governments in Canada do far too much today. They siphon off, because you think about the size of the welfare state, they siphon off an enormous proportion of our income that we would, if we were allowed to keep it, devote to helping one another and do a better job. And that would include in pensions, providing for the unfortunate, private pension arrangements, all kinds of things. It doesn't seem to be fair that the system should not follow actuarial logic. And private insurance companies and pension companies would follow actuarial logic, and the charitable sector would take up, would fill the gap. I'm sure that we would. Canadians are so wealthy these days. We are compassionate people. We would look after the less fortunate, and we would do a heck of a lot better job than the government. Now again, I often speak to groups where that would get a rousing round of applause. Here there are probably people who think that was a very strange thing to say. But that's okay, because as I said in my column, CAFE is not a place, I think, that seeks ideological orthodoxy. What we do is we seek to help men and boys in crisis now. And we do so from a diversity of points of view for a diverse group of clients. But for what my opinion on this one is worth, that's not fair, but it's a problem that stems from having entrusted the solution to the wrong organization in society.
I wonder, sorry. Yes, thank you. I wonder, John, if you could comment on, my favorite subject, which is the evil, as Aaron Busy would say, the evil empire. Particularly the development, the expansion, and the domination of what I call radical feminism.
Yeah,
I know my stand on that.
Yeah, and I think mine is fairly well known. I'm not here to be polemical.
Right,
but I will say, I was reflecting lately on the phenomenon of radicalism, and what I would like to say about radicalism that might usefully foster a conversation instead of starting a fist fight or a Twitter war. This probably doesn't qualify, but there is an astonishing level of bitterness. That the dominant mood, I remember years ago somebody talking about these student radicals with their manifestos that read like ransom notes. And I had, after my first column about CAFE, I had a long and reasonably civil, for the most part, debate with some feminists. I have no idea who this person was, but just, she sent me an email and we went back and forth. But I did repeatedly ask her, why, if you are so concerned about the suffering of women, are you not also concerned about the suffering of men? What has caused you to have such a one-sided view? And there's a kind of a clinging to, I am a victim. I am badly done to. No one can share the stage with me. Men can't also be badly done to. And so, this is the human race, okay? Everybody's life is more difficult than it looks. It doesn't mean that we have a lot to complain about compared to a lot of people in the world. There are all kinds of people whose lives are far worse than mine, but I've been a very lucky person in my life. I didn't do anything to deserve it. It just happened that way, I drew a long straw in all kinds of ways, and so I figure most of what's wrong is my own fault. But there are all kinds of people for whom that's not true. We're born in countries where there's war, they're born in famine, or they're born into a family situation that is so horrible that when you hear about it, you can't believe your ears. These things really do happen. I don't know if you know, G.K. Chesterton came up with Father Brown, his apparently completely out-to-lunch little Roman Catholic priest detective who knows all about the evil in the human heart, because he was actually having a conversation with a priest who was telling him about something. Chesterton didn't say what it was, but I think it might have been a case of incest or something along those lines. Some really hideous thing within a family. And then two young men joined the conversation. There was a bit of a chat, and then the priest left. And Chesterton asked them what they thought about him. They hadn't heard this discussion. And they said, well, he seemed like a nice enough man, but not very worldly. You have no idea the kind of things that are going on, but because we don't, we need to have, it seems to me, a sense of compassion. Even the person who wrote the newspaper columns that appear under my byline takes this seriously. Whittaker Chambers in Witness talked about this, that the dominant mood of his life was an absolving pity. that he saw the struggles everybody had. And what I don't understand about the radical feminists, many of whom have doubtless had highly unpleasant, traumatic experiences with men that justify anger, a sense of victimization, all that stuff. But the healing process requires us to have compassion for others. And that's what bothers me about it. Where's the compassion? Why would a group like CAFE be greeted initially with those whistleblowing, disruptive protests? I mean, maybe we're fools. Maybe we're misguided. Maybe there are angry people in the group. Maybe there are things to talk about. But the idea to shut it down in that intolerant spirit, there's a kind of malevolence. And again, if you counsel men in crisis, I don't, but I've talked enough to CAFE people to know this, they're often angry. And they're told, do not let the anger dominate your response, because all kinds of bad things will happen. Bad things will happen to you in the court system. Bad things will happen to your health. And ultimately, say the wise man forgives but does not forget. If you want to get on with your life, you cannot cling to the terrible things and let them define your identity. And I worry with radical feminism, perhaps I shall do them in by feeling sorry for them here, the last thing they would want, that they're clinging to the victimization and the hurt. And Nelson Mandela once said that hatred is like drinking poison hoping it will hurt your enemy. And I think that they do that. And it hurts everybody, including them.